Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Voice of the Cape 91.3 FM. We are still with Brother Basel Agbaria all the way in Palestine. And Brother Basil, I need to first once again just say shukran for really taking this time in joining us and sharing with
My
us
pleasure.
this entire
My pleasure.
history of Palestine, the current situation, and how we could possibly get involved. And I'm listening to you, and I'm just like, I'm lost for words in so many ways, because I think that just plain and simple, and being human, irrespective of religion or race or where you may be, there's just certain human qualities that should exist in a person, that feeling, that love, that understanding, or that relation with the next person. And subhanallah, I have just like no words. And you're right there, you're living and experiencing this. I mean, you've been in South Africa for quite a while, so you know us quite well, and our lifestyles, and our love for our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and how we voice our support. But being there, I'm sure, is something completely different. And so before you actually just continue, I'm just wanting to ask you, having grown up there, having experienced what you have, to date as a family, having come out now out of a month of Ramadan, that is really our spiritual cleansing and awakening for the entire year. And for me, last year, my friend Muazzam and so many others had gone over to Palestine. And once again, there was something that took place. And I'm starting to wonder whether Ramadan is like a time that this happens, and that they possibly earmark this time to create this type of unrest and disturbances to the community.
Unfortunately, they have no respect for us, and that brings us actually to the same point that we're talking about here. They have managed to dehumanize the Palestinian people. It's you keeping your humanity, by the same time that you're living with people that look at you that like you are unworthy. They unfortunately they teach them since when they're young that they are the chosen people of God, they are the best people, that they most clever people, that they people that own everybody else. They look at the other human race as people worthy for them. So for them, they act in a way that you are should be serving them, working for them. They can do anything for you. So that's when they got to a point with the teachings and they growing up, that they dehumanize the Arab people, dehumanize the Palestinian people. And when you succeed to do that as a system, as a country, you obviously succeed to do all your narratives, all your politics. You succeed to kill more people. You succeed to send people to other people's houses and steal it. You succeed with your army and with your soldiers and with your police. They all serve to that one purpose, that everybody else is lesser than you, and you should treat them that way. And we feel it in everyday life. But we know the history. We have learned it. We know that we are fighting for justice. We are fighting for truth. And for us, we draw that we as people who stand on the truth, it's not easy, but this is part of our living. You don't choose it, but you have to do what you have to do to defend your country. And for
Yeah.
somebody who loves his country, for somebody who looks at the soil of his country, understands everything. He belongs to that olive tree. He belongs to that land. He belongs to, to even to the places that he took from us, to the sea of Jaffa, to the sea of Haifa, to the city of Akka. When we go there, it's our land. We can see it. We can see it in the historical mosques that we built. We see it in the cemeteries around us. We see it everywhere. We even go to the displaced villages up till today. We can go to the displaced villages and see the ruins and the marks of the houses, and we learn about it. And we have, the writers that were thrown out of their houses, that, Ghassan Kanafani, for example, who was a refugee. He lived in Lebanon. but he wrote books about us. He said, he talked about, in one of his books, he talked about, three Palestinians that were making immigration and wanted to go live in Kuwait because the Kuwaiti situation was very good, but they didn't let everybody in because it kind of made a burden on other countries.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, that's very painful. And he says on the way they got into a truck and they had to hide in a barrel, that usually used for water. They had to hide inside it so one guy can sneak them into the country. And it
Oh,
was very hot that day, and he got delayed on the way on the checkpoint, and they were suffocating, and at the end they died
wow.
in that barrel. And he said, why didn't you knock on the barrel? You should knock on the barrel. And it was a message for us Palestinians: knock, do something, resist, fight. And that's what we live on. We are knocking on the barrel. We telling the world that we are living under racism, under apartheid regime. We are fighting, with the little we have. We don't
Yeah.
want to fight. We want to live as normal people, but we don't have any other option. And that's what we have to do to free our country, to return justice. And we want everybody to live in. We want Palestinians, Muslims, Arab, Christians, and Jews to live, side by side like we used to before 1948. We
Yeah.
don't want to discriminate against anybody. And I will emphasize this: our fight is not against Jewish people. Arab people and Jewish people in history didn't have any confrontation. They lived side by side in Morocco and in Egypt and in so many other countries, together. And they so on lived in Palestine. And when they massacred in Europe, we accepted them. We said, you can come to us. You are welcome in our homes. So we don't
Wow.
have problem with the Jewish people. We have problem with the Zionism ideology that our land belongs to somebody else and they have the right to kill us, displace us, and take our lands from us. And
Yeah.
they're learning day by day that it's not possible. They have been doing since 1948, 73 years of killing, displacement, imprisonment, chasing us, lying about us, saying that we are terrorists on social media, on everywhere for the world, with the American backing them, with so many governments, even Arab governments backing them. But they know, even if we're not alone, but even if the Palestinians are alone, we are ready to defend our land. There's no way to wipe us away from earth. We're gonna stay, we're gonna live, we're going to resist, we're going to take our land back.
So on that very note, you mentioned something really, really important, and I see quite a bit of videos on social media, particularly showing a huge response globally on the situation. Not only our Muslims in the community, we're seeing people from all walks of life. We're seeing lots of people speaking up on social media, so much trending, but we are also seeing Jewish families coming forward and saying, this isn't Judaism. What is happening to the Palestinian people is not part of our religion. And they are voicing their support also for the end of these atrocities. How is the response to that, Basil? Do you see that
We
happening
know, even
locally
like a
as
lot of
well?
yeah.
Okay.
Locally is not so much. So there are Jewish people that live amongst us who support us. There are people that we say, you can live with us, but they are still Zionists. But I'm talking about other people. I talked about, mentioned like Ilan Pape, for example, who was a Jewish historian. For example, he wrote one of the most important books on Palestine, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. There is the example of Miko Peled, which is his father was general in the army, in the 70s, who supports Palestinians, who live amongst Palestinians, and he says Palestine should be free. There are the Jewish, groups that live in certain Jewish groups that live in Palestine, and even in America, we have seen them in the protests that they say Palestine should be free. But those Jewish people around the world, they, even them, they are, they're being targeted, or even there's certain maybe hate towards them because what the Israeli government does, and they don't want that. They don't want killing under their name. Israel announced itself as the state for the Jewish people, but majority of Jewish people don't live in Israel. and the majority of Jewish people don't necessarily, support the Israeli occupation. And here you have minorities. You have 20% of Arabs, which is us, the people of 1948. We live inside the Israeli country. We have the Israeli passports and identity. There are many other, nationalities that live in here. So you can't announce yourself as the country for the Jewish people, because you are discriminating against so many Jewish people who don't want the killings under their name on their hands. So we understand that very well. But unfortunately, here in this country, the people that support us, they are very targeted. They call them self-hating Jews. They go after them as well, not as much as in Arabs, but they are actually discriminated against. So you don't see them a lot. They're not big in numbers, but you see them. But actually, as I said, the country itself, the way it's built, it's actually unfortunately built on racism and an apartheid.
Yeah. Basil, on this note though, in terms of all of the violence, all of the killings, so much happening to the women and children, what needs to happen to stop the violence?
The liberation of Palestine, it's kind of, it's a long process. I always say to the people, if you think, you go out on one march, or I don't know, you do one big, banquet, or you do one big thing for the Palestinian people, and you think that's it, it's not gonna work. Our fight needs to be a continuous fight. The little things that you do, the little contributions that you do, even us in Palestine, within Palestine, the little protests that we do, the little, interactions, and even the fighting sometimes even with soldiers with our bare hands, it can, forward, the issue of Palestine, speaking about it. But our issue, actually, we can't give up. Our issue is for people that have long breath, that know that this country established itself, convince the superpowers of the world to support it, now convincing, Arab, governments to support it as well. So we don't know what's going to happen. What we know here in Palestine, that we're going to keep fight it. We're going to protect, Jerusalem. We're going to protect Masjid al-Aqsa. We're going to protect our lands, our cemeteries, our heritage. We're going to fight every fight that there is. Every time that they're going to do something against us, delete our history, kill our people, displace us out of our houses, we have to be present and pay the hefty price for it. But we are ready to do that. And at the meanwhile, while we're doing that, what we want from the world is to support us, to strengthen us, to come to our cause, to spread the truth. That together, a boycott, which is one of the most, important means, and the South Africans know that very well. Actually, the South Africans should be the leading force by boycotting, ties with Israel, boycotting the Israeli products, boycotting Israeli academically. So it's a long process, and it's a collective process. And as you mentioned before and at the beginning, it's a humanitarian issue. So we want every human around the world to come and support us. Every little thing you do, even if you share post on social media, even if you press a like on a post that supports the Palestinians, for us, that's something. Do it. Don't never say that I'm doing too little for the Palestinians. Do whatever you can with your power. If you're an artist, do your art. If you are a journalist, write about it. Whatever you do for the Palestinian people, it forwards our struggle. And what we promise you as Palestinians, that we're going to keep fighting for our cause and for our land.
Well, Basil, I can say that, I think many are feeling, that they want to do something, that they want to make a huge difference. But I feel that sometimes we feel a bit disillusioned as in whether what we are doing is enough. I think we need to go in for a quick ad break, and we'll be back soon.